What's going on, everyone? My name is Mr. Rage and welcome back to another one of my video game reviews. And let me just start by saying I am extremely proud of myself that this is the first open world game review on my channel because, well, it is. This is the very first open world game that I will ever review on my channel, and I am extremely proud of myself that I chose Dying Light as the first open world game review on this channel because let me tell y'all something, man. Dying Light is one of the greatest games ever made. There comes a time when a game is made that manages to succeed in nearly every aspect that makes a game good. Some of the most important aspects that makes a game good. It's rare to see that these days, and it was rare to see it back in any day. Dying Light is what I would like to call an almost perfect game, an extremely close to being a perfect game. And you know, it's sad because when this game first came out, everyone thought it was just another generic zombie game, and everyone was saying it was bad because the story sucked. For anybody who thinks that a game is bad just because the story sucked, a game's gameplay is its heart and soul. The gameplay is what makes the game a game, and the gameplay is what makes the game fun, which is what video games are supposed to be. So for anyone who is shitting all over this game just because, oh my god, the story sucked, this game is garbage, the story was so bad. If you want story, go play one of Telltale's games or any of PlayStation's exclusives, or watch a fucking movie, because this game is awesome, not because of its story, but because of how perfect its gameplay is. And let me also start by saying this game's gameplay is perfect. It is absolutely amazing. It is fun, it has variety and diversity. I'm pretty sure those are the same things, but the gameplay is absolutely incredible. And you know, even the story is not as bad as people want you to believe. Anyone who thinks that this game's story was extremely sucky or just complete trash, did you speedrun this game? Or were you actually just so negative that you just have to always look for something to hate? You know, everyone's a critic these days. While the game may not be absolutely perfect, this game is absolutely amazing. This is an amazing game. It is nearly a 10 out of 10, and there is barely any criticisms I have for this game. I'm going to let you all know that right now. This review is going to be extremely positive for Dying Light. And also, this game's gameplay is so amazing. I actually have to focus on the gameplay over the story. I will have to actually make a separate video just talking about the story, which you could expect very soon. But for now, we're just going to be talking about the amazing gameplay. The gameplay alone makes this one of the best zombie games ever made, the best open world game ever made, and one of the best survival games ever made. You want to know why? Because this game combines all of those elements together. This game takes a survival game, an open world game, and a combat game, and basically combines it in one of the best scenarios ever. You have a massive open world that gives the player true freedom, along with some amazingly fun video game mechanics that make the game absolutely incredible. I'll admit, some of the mechanics are a little frustrating, especially the RPG mechanic. One criticism that I have right off the bat is just how weak you actually start when you first start playing the game. Your character, Kyle Crane, is basically what I would like to call an extremely obese American, who can't fight for shit and can't run for shit. You start off in this game extremely weak. You barely have any stamina, you barely cannot run, and you can't even fight. You're basically an obese person. It's an obese person simulator. It's an obese person in a zombie apocalypse simulator when you first start. So the RPG mechanic, it's definitely a little annoying when you first start off. But I think that's my only criticism. We'll talk about the RPG mechanic in a sec, but That's probably going to be my only criticism. I wish Techland would have made it a bit more beginner friendly when you first start off, but hey, it is a survival game. Survival games are not supposed to be beginner friendly. If you're a noob, get good, I guess. So, the first thing I want to talk about is honestly the open world. You see, one of the other great things about Dying Light is it knows how to make an open world good. And if you're wondering how to make an open world good, is when you have fun gameplay mechanics that benefit the open world. I feel like that's how an open world is supposed to work. The gameplay mechanics make the open world good, and so does the open world in general. And Dying Light has a fantastic open world. The map is not GTA 5 large, but it is a good sized map. It is decently large, and there is a lot of freedom. The minute you start this game, well, not the minute, but after a fairly quick tutorial, the player is immediately given complete freedom, and the game is always allowing freedom. There is never a linear moment in this game. Even when there are moments where you are actually indoors or in a building, you still have an extreme amount of freedom and the ability to just go wherever you want and approach any situation however you want. But one thing I love is honestly the open world. The open world is absolutely fantastic. And not only that, but the open world is also filled with so many details. Not only is Dying Light's open world amazing to explore, but it actually feels like a real life open world. Playing this game actually feels like being thrown into an actual real life zombie apocalypse survival simulator. That's how good the open world is. It is jam-packed with some of the greatest details I have ever seen in an open world game, and the open world in general is just amazing. You've got great details, you've got fantastic level design, and you've also got a lot of variety with the open world. There's a lot of different locations that are within the open world, and that's another great thing that makes open world games good. When the open world actually has its own little environments that actually make it seem realistic. I've seen some people shit on this game for having locations that look the same. I don't know what those people are talking about. This game's open world has plenty of variety in its own different little locations within the open world, and it is absolutely amazing. And another great thing, of course, is how you traverse the open world. The parkour. The first great thing about Dying Light. This is some of the greatest parkour I have ever seen in a game. Not only is it some of the most best looking parkour, but it is also some of the most satisfying. Jumping from building to building is extremely fun. You will not only feel like you are a superhuman, but the game almost makes you think you really are a superhuman, because jumping from building to building with ease is absolutely satisfying as fuck. The parkour is fantastic. You could jump from building to building, and also the climbing. Climbing or scaling a building, especially a large building, is also extremely satisfying. Not only can you climb a building or scale a building, but you could also jump from building to building. You could climb up a window and then jump to the building across from it if it's close enough. And when you feel like you're about to miss it, but you actually just managed to grab the ledge and you actually are now on that wall scaling another building, it feels so satisfying. The parkour is absolutely amazing. This is some of the best parkour I have ever seen in a game. And that's what I meant what I meant earlier when I said that gameplay mechanics make an open world feel good. The parkour is another one of the things that actually make this game's open world feel so good, because not only is the open world filled with details and also just fun to explore, but how you actually traverse the open world with the parkour mechanic is another fantastic thing about Dying Light's gameplay. So the parkour is fantastic. Another thing I want to talk about real quick about the open world is how many things the open world actually offers besides the exploration, because exploration it's one of the more smaller things about Dying Light, but the game also does have a fairly good amount of exploration. Exploring the buildings, or just exploring the environment and just taking in the atmosphere and just noticing some of the game's fantastic details or visuals or other great things, some of the carnage or just the macabre of the apocalypse, because this is an apocalypse game at the end of the day. It's fantastic. Another thing I forgot to mention about the open world is you could actually enter most buildings in this game. Another great thing about the open world. This is something that actually a lot of other open world games don't offer. But you can actually enter most buildings in the open world, and it is absolutely amazing. This is one of the most immersive games ever made. The open world is not only amazing, but its amazing details and the amount of freedom that it offers you truly makes you feel like you are immersed, especially because you can enter buildings and just be able to do whatever you want. Freedom is a huge part of this game, and it is fucking amazing since it is an open world game. It's what makes the open world good. Another thing I want to talk about is what the open world actually offers. There are so many things that the open world offers. One of my favorites is actually around the beginning of the game, where basically there are these crates that are dropped by this the GRE, which is a part of the story, but forget about that. There are these crates that are dropped, and you could basically collect them and give them to the other survivors that you are staying with. So that's another great thing. And another great thing is while exploring the city, you could actually come across survivors who are either being attacked by zombies or other hostile humans, which we'll talk about in a minute. There are also these little bounty challenges, and they're pretty self-explanatory. They're basically just fun little challenges. There are also parkour challenges. So if you're someone who actually enjoys the parkour a hell of a lot in this game, there are even parkour challenges around the city, which is also just fantastic. There are also these things called quarantine zones, which is basically where you go into these little buildings around the city where you have to clear out a horde of zombies while solving an objective. So again, the variety and everything that the open world offers is, again, fantastic. It is done so well. So yeah. There are also like these little protection missions. Or no, not missions, but there are these characters around the map or the city. And you're basically escorting them to do what they gotta do and then escort them to a safe house. Now, personally, I don't like protection missions, but these ones, they were all right. It was more variety, so it was all right. There's nothing wrong with that. Now the next thing I want to talk about, because we're pretty much done talking about the open world, or actually no, we're not. Another thing I want to mention is there are actually two different cities that you have access to in Dying Light. You have the slums, which is fairly large, and then you have Old Town. And Old Town actually feels like a totally different game at times because of how different its city is. So you've got two giant-ass cities to explore with random events. And again, I gotta say, the random events, like either the protection missions or just saving survivors, it's all done very, very well, along with the challenges and everything else. So the open world, the parkour, fantastic. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is crafting and items. The crafting is what makes this a survival game. Another great gameplay element that Techland managed to put in here. There are over hundreds, and I mean literally hundreds of items in the game. The first items you have are equipment items. These are things that basically help you with combat or when you're being chased by zombies or when you're being threatened by zombies. These range from UV flashlights, Molotov cocktails, grenades, or combat shields, which are pretty self-explanatory. You've also got things like a grappling hook, which literally makes you feel like you are fucking Spider-Man in a zombie apocalypse. As well as different types of throwable items. You've also got things like throwing stars or throwing knives, which again, help with the combat. Then you've got things like boosters. Basically what these things do is these things actually enhance the player's physical abilities. They can make you run faster, or they can make you more resistant to damage, or they can camouflage you from the infected. Other great items in the game are basically these weapon upgrade items. And this is another thing I actually liked. That was I like Dead Island had something where you just upgrade a weapon by just using money. I actually love the idea of finding items that could be applied to your weapons to enhance them. Well, we'll talk about the weapons in a minute. But yeah, there are basically these items that can be used to upgrade your weapons. And then, of course, there are items that are used to craft bigger items. And the crafting is done fantastically well because the crafting is basically essential for getting better items. Almost every item in this game needs to be crafted or it could be found in the environment. But most items need to be crafted, except for the weapon upgrades. Those are actually the only items that don't need to be crafted. Those items are found by exploring the open world or by buying them from other survivors. But most of the items in this game can be crafted, and the crafting system is done extremely well. Because another great thing about the gameplay or this mechanic is, in order to find the items to craft bigger and better items, the required items need to be found while exploring the open world. And that's how you find these items that are used or required to craft these other items. You need to find them while exploring the open world. So again, this just gives you a better reason for exploring the open world, and it makes it more fun to explore the open world. And the open world is already fun. Like, this is one of the best open world games ever made because of how big the open world is and how much freedom it gives and how many different things it gives you to keep you busy. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention is there are also these safe houses that are found around the open world. And basically what these are, they're pretty self-explanatory. You basically find these safe houses. You clear out all zombies or enemies in the area. You usually turn on the light, lock a gate, and these safe houses are a huge recommendation for me because if you're being chased at nighttime, which we'll talk about in a minute, you're going to want a safe house to go to. So yeah, that's one thing I forgot about the open world. But again, back to the crafting. The crafting is done extremely well in this game. I also like how certain items require a certain amount of crafting items and require different and specific crafting items, and usually a certain amount of them, which just adds more variety and more challenge. It's what makes this a true survival game because crafting is obviously part of survival. I wish other horror games would actually do this. So the crafting is done extremely well. And I also love how much variety there is in the items. Like I said, there's equipment items, there's boosters, there's also valuables which could be sold to other survivors for cash. And about that, if you're too lazy to find the items needed for crafting, or just finding the items in general, like weapon upgrades or just weapons in general, you could actually buy it from other survivors because there are survivors throughout the city and even in safe houses that can sell you all types of shit, including weapons or crafting items or items that are already built. So if you're too lazy, you could just buy it from other survivors. Of course, there is also a money system in the game. Basically what I like to call the profit system. Money can be found by either looting cash registers, dead bodies, or areas and buildings that you could get into. So the crafting and the item management is done very, very well in Dying Light. So you've got great crafting, you've got a great open world, you've got great parkour. What's next? Oh, of course, the combat. The combat in Dying Light is amazing. It is some of the most brutal combat in first-person history. It's better than Dishonored. It's better than Condemned Criminal Origins. It is some amazing, amazing combat. I also like how there's variety with the weapons. Because obviously, what would combat be without weapons? And one thing that's actually another major improvement from Dead Island is weapons actually break on you realistically, and they even have their own power percentage. Some items do like 99% damage, like 50% damage, and others do like over 200 damage, especially if you can upgrade them. Finding powerful items in this game is extremely satisfying, and just like I said earlier, same thing as when you are looking for crafting items or just items in general, you find weapons by exploring the open world and finding them. Oh, another couple of items I forgot is obviously things like medkits or consumables like, eating, to increase your health, or alcohol and gauze used to make medkits. More items that you could find, as well as, another thing I forgot to mention. Items can be used, like the same items can be used to craft different things. So if you have alcohol, you could use alcohol to craft a medkit or a Molotov cocktail. So I like how the same items can be used to craft different things, like different equipment. So another great thing about the resource management. Weapons can also be crafted. Weapons can be crafted by finding the right materials, or they could be upgraded by finding weapon blueprints that are also hidden throughout the city, or can be sold to you by other survivors. But you've got so much variety with the weapons. You've got casual things like baseball bats, you've got 2x4s, you've got pipes, you've got things like, or you got more powerful things like machetes, sledgehammers, really big fucking knives, all kinds of stuff. You even got stuff like a police baton or something like that, or sickles, or hatchets. So you've got some amazing weapon variety as well. And there are so many items in this game. Like I said earlier, there are hundreds of items in this game that can either be found or crafted. And these items, again, can only be crafted by finding the materials which can be found throughout the open world or sold to you. So again, you've got some amazing item management, amazing crafting, and of course the combat. The combat is extremely brutal. You've even got variety with the enemies. There's variety with the zombies as well. You've got your typical walker zombies, like, these guys are here. I like to call these basically your Romero zombies, basically, the Night of the Living Dead type zombies, slow shambling type zombies. Then you've got the 28 Weeks Later zombies, the ones who will run at you. These guys I found somewhat annoying, but, to each their own. Then you've got big motherfuckers like this one giant-ass zombie who wields a freaking hammer. And this guy will knock you down instantly if he gets too close. Then you've got a zombie that can basically throw acid at you. And this actually takes a lot of damage from you as well. So you've got, I like how each zombie even has their own threat level. The walkers are not dangerous unless they're in a group. The virals are much more dangerous but are weaker because, they're still somewhat human, basically. The toads are a ranged zombie that needs to be taken down immediately or else it'll burn you with its acetic acid. The big guys with the hammers are durable and could do a lot of damage and are even more dangerous when they are paired with other zombies, even though they knock them down every time they slam that hammer of theirs. Then you've got things like, smaller type zombies, like, this is actually something that I'm surprised I didn't get controversy for, but there is actually child zombies in this game. They're basically called screamers, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Again, they basically scream, which will disorient you, take away some of your health, and will attract other nearby zombies, and they're also children as well. So I love that a lot. Then you've got basically the tank from Left 4 Dead. It's called the Demolisher. Basically, this huge monster type zombie that does an extreme amount of damage and is extremely durable to your attacks. And then, of course, the star of the game, the Volatiles. Basically, the most powerful infected in the game. They could do an extreme amount of damage. And we also got to talk about the game's day and night cycle. During the daytime of the game, you'll basically be exploring the city, looking for crafting items or just items in general, or just killing zombies or doing missions. And at nighttime, the game changes completely at night. Basically, how this game works is, in the daytime, it's Dead Rising. In the nighttime, it's a full-blown survival horror game. because at nighttime, these horrifying zombies called the volatiles come out, who are basically just mutants at this point, and they are extremely powerful and extremely durable. If you have an extremely powerful weapon that you could either craft or upgrade or just find throughout the open world or buy, you can take down the volatiles somewhat easy. But for the most part, the volatiles are OP, but that's a good thing because the game is supposed to be scary. Dying Light is supposed to be a scary zombie game, so at nighttime, the volatiles are nearly unstoppable, and they will kill you extremely quickly. The only way to stop them is by using a UV light, which is another equipment item in the game. And you've also got different ones as well. You've got a UV light or you have UV flares, which can all be used to suppress volatiles. And again, just goes back to what I said earlier. There are hundreds, and I mean hundreds of different items in this game. And each of those items needs different materials to craft them. So again, you've got great item management and also more variety with the gameplay. And the nighttime gameplay, it is so much fun. Being chased by a pack of volatiles and just other zombies in general, because at nighttime, the zombies also start running. Even the slow shambling zombies will just start running after you like they just got some kind of boost or some shit. So the nighttime gameplay, it's what adds even more variety in the game, because in the daytime, it's just a survival zombie game. But in the nighttime, shit hits the fan very, very quickly. Now back to the combat. Like I said earlier, the combat is extremely violent, but extremely satisfying. You've also got human enemies in the game. These human enemies are much more harder to take down than your typical zombies, which you'll be fighting most of the time, but the human enemies are a lot more challenging because they're a lot more tactile against you. There are also guns in the game, which just makes the combat even better. The guns are actually pretty fun to use, and it spices up the gameplay a little bit because this could either be a melee game with melee combat, or you could just turn this into Left 4 Dead or Call of Duty when you find like a shotgun or an assault rifle or a micro gun or a micro SMG. There's also a good amount of guns in the game, so honestly, there is just so much here. Honestly, there is just so much here. You've got plenty of variety with the combat and the weapons. You've got guns. You've got grenades. You can blow shit up. You've got Molotov cocktails. One of my favorite things to do in this game is actually to burn the human enemies and just watch them slowly burn. Because like I said, this game is also extremely violent. Like, honestly, people call GTA too violent. Look at this fucking game. You could literally squash heads in with a fucking baseball bat. This game is also very, very violent. You could smash heads in with baseball bats. You could break somebody's bones to the point where their bones are actually exposed and showing. The combat is fantastic. It is done very well in this game. Now, the last thing we gotta talk about is the upgrade system. The last thing about the gameplay. The upgrade system is your typical RPG, but there are 4 classes. You've got survival, agility, and power, which is basically the same thing as your combat. And how it works is the more parkour you do, the more your agility level will increase. The more combat you do, the more your power level will increase. The more you help survivors, or the more stuff you craft, your survival skill tree will increase. And each of the abilities you get will enhance your gameplay. For example, with the agility, your agility perks, basically, or your agility power-ups, some will let you run faster, others will let you slide, others will let you literally jump over zombies. Your combat meter or your combat class, some will help you basically instantly kill a zombie by sneaking up on them, or literally just instantly killing them if they're dazed. Others let you instantly push a zombie off if they try and grab you. Others let you do the famous Dying Light drop kick. And once you max out your skill trees, you're basically unstoppable. Remember when I said that at the beginning of the game you're extremely weak? Well, the RPG mechanic actually does work pretty well, because you basically get more powerful in the game the more you play. The more parkour you do, the more combat you do, the more survival type things you do. So by the end of the game, or no, not even by the end, like in the middle of the game, you will literally become unstoppable. Well, until the volatiles come, of course, but you'll just become a lot more powerful. So the RPG mechanics, they work well. I'm not a huge fan of RPGs, but they work well. So that about does it, you guys. Dying Light's gameplay is what makes it so amazingly well. One more thing I want to talk about real quick is this game's soundtrack. Dying Light's soundtrack is fantastic. Whoever the composer is of this game's soundtrack, they deserve a reward because this game's soundtrack is fantastic. There's this really ambient theme that also plays while you're exploring the city. It's this beautiful, haunting theme, a very beautiful but ambient haunting theme. I wish I could show it to you guys, but I don't want to get, copyright strike. So, but look it up on the internet. Look up this game's soundtrack. Very well done. But yeah. You've got amazing crafting, amazing variety with items, so many items. You've got great combat, great parkour, a fantastic open world. Dying Light is one of the greatest games ever made, and the reason for that is because the gameplay is amazing, and that is what makes a game amazing, because a game's gameplay, like I said, is what makes a game a game. It is a game's heart and soul, because if the gameplay is not fun, then it's not a good game, because if the gameplay is not fun, then it's not a good game, because all that matters with a game is its gameplay. It's what makes a game, it's what makes a game fun. The gameplay is what matters, ladies and gentlemen, and this is one of those games that actually manages to do